Try to put this up here. There we go. So I'm coming from my phone today because my computer kept saying, my laptop kept saying that I had some kind of something went wrong. So the workaround, we are here. Happy Monday. If you don't know, I'm new on YouTube, but happy to be here. Was on Facebook for a long time. I said, let me switch it up a little bit. Let me try something different and engage with a different audience. And I'm excited to be doing that. So, Shereem Herndon-Brown, Strategic Admissions Advice. Welcome to, our weekly Monday conversation all about college admissions and ways that you can feel supported in this process. I'm excited because I have a whole script that I'm going to, go through some stuff with you guys. I'm trying to make sure that I teach. I'm going to open a window a second, but I'm trying to teach you things that parents, I'm asking you to pay attention to this as it is that time of year where I really want parents to be focused in on what should be happening in the college admissions process. So stay right there. All right, as hot as it is in my house, I'm blessed to have heat in the snow blizzard in Maryland, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I don't start sweating in front of you. So that's why we did that. But I'm pumped. I'm here. It's Monday. Let's do it. Let's do it, dude. Let's do it. All right. All right, let me see. All right, so February, we are going to start talking about course selection. It is very, very, very important that parents get involved in the course selection process with and for their kids. Let me see, what happens if I click on a mute? Let me make sure I can hear myself. I'm sorry. Start talking about. Yep. There we go. So all that said, really, really excited that, I get excited about college counseling and college admissions and what you need to know. And I can tell you right now, I had a great conversations, plural, with a lot of different families over the past several days over the weekend about what needs to be happening in the college admission process right now. So, I think it's time that we get into it and allow ourselves, parents, to be a much more active participant in the college counseling course selection realm. It's important to me that everyone understand how critical it is to help your kid choose the right courses for high school, okay? Whether your kid's going into 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, very quickly you're going to have to start choosing classes, and I want you to choose classes that make the most sense. And I call that appropriate rigor, right? Appropriate rigor of classes. You want to make sure your child's taking the right classes for their right appropriate, state of mind and how to do well. So let's talk about that a little bit. Again, tonight's conversation is incredibly important, particularly around this time, because parents, I want you reviewing your kids' grades. I want you thinking about next year. I want you meeting with school counselors and definitely being integral, not just on the periphery, integral in the course selection process. So I don't want you to treat this course selection process like it's paperwork. No, it's positioning. It really is positioning. It's you helping your kid to make sure that they can be a strong candidate at whatever school they're going to apply to, but they need to be specific and they need to be positioned because your kid's transcript is the most important thing that a college sees. Before essays, before recommendations, before activities, they're going to see the transcript. And on that transcript, they're going to want to see appropriate rigor. What does that mean? You know your kid's learning style. Hopefully the school counselors know your kid's learning style, but you need to make sure that there's appropriate rigor. Thank you, people, for joining in. Ha ha. Some people are leaving, but that's all good. I want people to experience this and watch this on the replay. Thank you. But I want you to be able to understand why your kid's taking certain courses and why it's so important. So first and foremost, I had a great conversation with a family in Los Angeles just this weekend. We do most of our work on the East Coast. I'm a New Yorker living in Maryland. But I do want to be clear that the family that I was talking to in LA, their kid was taking Mandarin 1, but doing great, getting A's. And thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Thank you. Getting A's. And I think, and I introduced this idea to them, could your kid do well enough to take Chinese 5, Mandarin 5, the AP course, as a senior? And then what does that mean if they do that? What do they have to do? And again, had been mentioned to them by, I guess, the Mandarin teacher that the kid was doing well enough to skip, quote unquote, Mandarin 2 and to take Mandarin 3. And I said, you know what? Let's re-engage that conversation. Let's not be dismissive of an opportunity to level up the rigor for a course that your kid's doing well in, feels confident about. And they recently just hit me back and said, you know what? The Mandarin teacher thinks it's a good idea because she's projecting that he'll be ready for the AP course as a senior. Again, I am not someone to say take honors and APs just to look impressive for colleges. No. You don't want your kid taking classes that is going to self-sabotage their college process. So what does rigor exactly mean? I want to show you exactly what we're talking about tonight. What does rigor mean? Which AP or IB courses are necessary? How do you sequence courses strategically? How do you talk to counselors and department chairs for the different schools? And what exact formula for strong transfer for competitive colleges? Again, I'm someone who fashions himself as the college list builder. I love building college lists, but I need you to know that I can't build any list, or no college can accept a kid without a transcript. So your kid doing as well as they can, and then not everybody is a straight A kid taking 10 APs, needs to be the primary thing. So why this matters right now, February, March, we're coming up on. These are the key course selection months. You may have a chance to revisit them in April, May, June, or even beginning of the fall. But this is the time where schools start thinking about the courses they need to have in place for different kids for different reasons. So I don't want you to think, oh, my kid's doing fine, or I don't want to stress them. They already have a lot. Nah. No, we want to make sure that our kids are taking the right classes for the right reasons and then seeing themselves taking more classes, sequencing out over the next several years. So let's put course rigor in context. All right. How do I say this? Notes. Did your child challenge themselves relative to their availability and ability at their school? Did they give themselves an opportunity to do the best that they can in the courses they were given at their school? That's critical. If a student has the ability to level up and doesn't, right? Kid's doing really, really well in a certain discipline, but decides, you know what, I'm going to take the easier course as a next level sophomore, junior, senior. Again, I'm not saying that's the wrong way to go, but it does signal to a college that your kid isn't ready to play ball with the big boys, big girls, whatever you want to call it, big V's. And you want to make sure that you're giving them an opportunity to be the most competitive candidate as possible. So there is not a maximum or minimum. It's what's appropriate, but understand that the college is going to know what the child's curriculum was at the school, and they're going to want to know how they did in context of that curriculum, all right? So the goal is to have appropriate upward trajectory in grades, but also sequencing of courses. That's number one, all right? So you hear the words rigor, you think more APs, more IBs, more honors. No. Your kid challenging themselves appropriately and progressively, key word, over time. All right, I'm going to go over a few things. A formula for better or for worse, for a strong transcript. If you're watching this on replay, please rewind this if necessary. Your kid's probably going to take the 4 core courses of math, English, science, and social studies. Those are probably non-negotiable at your kid's school, and colleges are going to expect to see those on the transcript. Most high schools have 2 to 3 years of math as a requirement. I think colleges at this juncture love seeing kids maximize their math and science abilities. That is not applicable to everyone, but it is something that if your kid wants engineering or business, then they're going to have to really show that they're good analytically. So the normal sequencing for math, and this could happen as early as 8th grade or even 7th grade, but usually goes Algebra 1, 8th or 9th grade, Geometry, 10th grade or 9th grade, Algebra 2 with pre-calc, and then Calculus. And that calculus could be a honors calculus, it could be a regular calculus, it could be an AP calculus. But you want, if your kid has interest in any of the STEM or business fields, you want to give them an opportunity to take a higher level math class, even AP statistics if you can. So if anyone has any comments about that, I'm happy to listen to them. But if your child struggles, then I don't want you overloading them unnecessarily. It's unfair to them, it's unfair to their learning style, and it's just unnecessary. 3 years of lab science. Again, I'm giving you the formula. This is not applicable to everyone, but I do think biology and chemistry and physics are kind of the foundations of science in high school, and I want your kid to, at the minimum, have 2 out of those 3, if not all 3, under their belt, and then they can elaborate or take electives that might make sense. STEM kids, you gotta have this under your belt. Humanities kids should still try to push through physics if they can. They're probably going to be required to take physics or bio as a 9th grader, and then chemistry as 10th graders. World language, let's talk about it, right? Spanish, French, Chinese, Mandarin. August, please stop sniffing my clothes. That's my dog. It's important that the main languages, the Spanish, the French, the Latin, the Mandarin, that your kid is taking as many, again, appropriately, but leveling up accordingly. Like I said, I just had this great conversation with this family in LA about their kid leveling up in Chinese by skipping Mandarin 2 and going straight to Mandarin 3 from Mandarin 1. And again, I think given his grades and his aptitude for it, I do think that this is a great move for him because it helps him to get an AP course later on down the line as a senior that he might not have had otherwise. Again, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for your kids to be involved in English or STEM or social sciences, arts. I want to encourage all these things. What I don't want your kids to do is bite off more than they can chew. If you have to choose either AP Lit or AP Comp Gov, which would look better, thank you, Joy of Life 1832. Again, I don't know your kid. Thank you for the highs, everyone else. I don't know your kid. I don't know the transcript. I don't know what their interest. I think in this day and age, AP Comp Government shows a little bit more relevancy to current events, shows a little bit more understanding of how the world works in terms of economically and from a governmental standpoint. I'm an English major, so I love literature. I have a master's in English, but I do think the canon of great literature is dwindling. So I do think that AP Comparative Government probably makes more sense. But again, I don't know your kid. I don't know if they're interested. I don't know their transcript. But that would be my short answer to your question, Joy of Life 1832. And APs and IBs, they're impressive. I'm not trying to diminish that, but you don't want your kid taking something that's not right for them. You don't want them taking something that's going to self-sabotage their process. So 2 to 4 APs is normal. If your kid wants to really, really accelerate and look and put themselves in a position to be a candidate at some of the most selective schools in the country, sure. Depending on what your school offers, that more than 4 should be under consideration. But I don't want you to think the name of the game is taking all the APs your kid can, or your kid thinking taking all the APs that they can is going to get them into all the schools that they want. It doesn't quite work that way. I'm so glad I asked. She wants to be an attorney. Wonderful. Yes, her being an attorney and her having opportunities to understand how history works, how laws work, how government economics works, I do think that's powerful. And again, nothing against literature, whether it's Chaucer, Milton, Toni Morrison. I want your kid to be a strong candidate at whatever college they want to, and each college is going to have a different criteria. But the sweeping generalization, and this is a horrible thing to say, but don't shoot the messenger, is that APs like literature, psychology, human geography aren't seen as competitive as some of the other APs. So I want you just to understand that, and depending on where they're applying, how that makes sense. So thank you for the questions. I appreciate it because I want to make sure I give people good information. So the mindset shift that parents have to have is that you have to get involved. I don't want your kid doing this on their own. I don't want you to assume that your school counselor is going to have the foresight and the vision that you may have for your kid. I do think it's important that parents are able to see themselves. You're going to have to pay for this. That's real talk. I'm a father of 4. And you need to not just assume that a counselor that has maybe 250 students, maybe 300, maybe 600, maybe just 30. But you want to make sure that they're, giving your kid inspired advice, inspired college lists. And that means that you need to do your due diligence, families, to understand how this all works. So the mindset shift is, yes, they are young adults. Yes, you want them to take initiative. You want them to take ownership of the college process on their own. But they're still teenagers, and I still think that they have a tendency to not think ahead as much as they want. So I think at this juncture, parents, if you're able to get their current grades, if you're able to, talk to your kid or confirm with them which teachers are having their recommendations, like what are the graduation requirements, but also what are the expectations of certain colleges that they're applying to? What are the prerequisite courses that colleges are going to want them to apply to? You as a parent, sorry to put this on you, you need to do your homework as well, because it is critical that you not leave this all up to a teenager who's not paying for it per se, and a school counselor. The next piece, just mentioning the school counselor, I do want you to engage with your school counselor in a positive way to get their advice. Again, I am one person who's extremely experienced in this field, but I don't want to pretend like I know your kid, their school, or where they're applying. Your school counselor should be the hub of that. So make sure, a parent, that you are engaging in a fruitful, understanding, but interactive experience with the school counselor, because you want to have the information that you need with your kids. So you don't want to be a demanding parent. Those get on our nerves. I used to be a school counselor. You want to partner with the school. You want to make sure that we're all ready for the challenge. We're all stepping up for the kids. So that's where we're going to go. So you're asking the right questions of the English, whatever teacher this may be, of the school counselor. You're making sure that as a parent, you're fully engaged with understanding how the school works, what they're expecting, and, using evidence, not necessarily emotion, in choosing, courses for your kid. You want to take their recommendation. You want to trust their expertise, but you also want to understand how the sequencing works and what colleges may be looking for in that space. So I am going to make sure that as a parent, that your job at this juncture is to be looking over your kid's shoulder about their courses. I want you to know that you should not be leaving this all up to them. You need to understand what colleges are looking at and what they could be expecting. You want to understand, what the school requirements are to graduate. But with all that said, again, great questions in the comments. I appreciate it tremendously. I'm happy to have someone from our team have a discovery call with you. I really want to just come on here and share information, but if you want to have a discovery call with us, go to strategicadmissionsadvice.com. It's in the description. It's on the YouTube channel. Again, I'm enjoying YouTube, just kind of getting into it, because I want to make sure that as we go into this season of class of 2027, class of 2028, as you're going into the season of choosing class, that you have, someone to bounce things off of. And it's important that parents, that you're involved. So with that, you're going to email your school counselor, you're going to engage with them, you're going to look over your kid's shoulder and understand the sequencing of the courses, and you're not just going to leave this up to them. You need to understand appropriate rigor and what's right for your kid at this juncture as they make the gradual trend upward. Is that fair? I think that is fair. All right. Again, I said I would put this into a tight 20-minute YouTube Live. I've done that. Would love to connect. Please comment here. If you're watching this on the replay, would love to engage with you, and go to strategicadmissionsadvice.com. We've been around for 20 years in different capacities, but as I share more on social media, I love meeting people who are just caring about their kid and trying to get in good information. So, all right. I appreciate you very, very much. My first time using my phone for a live, and I think it went pretty well. All right. I appreciate you guys. So give yourselves a shout out. Thanks for the love. And I will be here next week at the same time, and we'll do it again. Thanks. Bye.